Dr. Kavita Singh, Associate Professor in Department of Civil Engineering in Institute of Aeronautical Engineering. So today we are going to discuss a topic called as land use land cover in water resources. So till now we have discussed here four modules about remote sensing, about GIS, about photogrammetry, about database management. Now in this module, we are going to discuss about the different applications of land use land cover in the water resources. So how this land use land cover will be helpful in the water resource. So it is very useful in the water resource. So when you do this land use land cover mapping, it helps us to tell us about the status of the water. It helps us to tell us about the status of the different situations present in that location. So water body, if any flood occurs, if any drought occurs, then what is the condition of the water? It will be showing with the help of this land use and land cover planning. So let us start with the contents here. So contents here we can see here introduction, impacts of land use and land cover on water resources, land use land cover mapping and monitoring, management and conservation of strategies, case study examples, and conclusion. So these are all we are going to discuss today. So let us start with the introduction part. So in introduction, we'll just understand first of all what is land use and land cover. First of all, you should understand what is land use and land cover. So these are the two different things, that is land use and land cover. So what are the two different things here? Land use, if you talk about land use, what does it mean? So land use means utilization of the land. Utilization of the land. As you know that the entire land, either it is utilized, either it is covered. Okay, so it may be utilized by the different activities, like when you talk about this construction activities, buildings, and different kinds of activities. Human utilizes the land for the cropping pattern, utilizes the land for the any kind of creating of any embankments or dams or transportation activities. This all comes under the land use pattern. So when you talk about this land use, this all activities will be considered in this land use. So what about land cover? So what is land cover? What is land cover? Land cover is the land which is utilized or which is naturally covered by the different activities is called as land cover. So land cover is like two things here. So whenever we talk about this water resource, so water resource, by the water resource, either the land is covered, either it is utilized. So when you talk about the cover, means automatically when the rainfall occurs, the areas will be filled with the water, so it is naturally automatically covered. Or else by the human beings, they will create these dams or embankments and they will store the water. This all comes under the land use. Okay, so land and land cover, land use and land cover is a biophysical cover. It's a biophysical cover on the earth's surface and immediate subsurfaces that play a significant role in the influencing water and energy balance. So it will help us in the immediate subsurfaces. It will play a significant role and it will influence the water and the energy balance in the water resource. So land use is never static. So as we know, land is never static, means it is a dynamic in nature. It keeps on changing. So most of the activities like which a human being is utilizing the land, so it will be keep on changing. It will be continuous process where the land activity will be changing continuously. Like developmental activities, when you see in some places, like the developmental activities, if today some developmental activity is going on in some area, that may be changed in the another 10 days. If you see the satellite view of that area, so for example, today if you take the satellite picture of that area, so that area will be maybe developed, very small building is started, construction is started, and later when you see the construction will be completed in the 10 days. So same thing, like if you talk about the land cover, there is a lot of natural vegetation present in such area. Later what happens, the vegetations will be vanished and it will be converted to the constructional activities. So these all changes we can see because the land cover is static. It is uh, dynamic in nature. It keeps on changing due to this anthropogenic drivers. So, who are the anthropogenic drivers? Anthropogenic means human beings, those who human beings, those who will be changing the activities in the surroundings. So, however, in the last few decades, the changes are more pronounced due to urbanization. Now, let us talk about this urbanization and deforestation. So, these are the two things where the anthropogenic drivers, where the human beings are involved. So, what is that urbanization and deforestation? So, when you talk about urbanization, that means that developmental activities are taking place dynamically, and the activities are changing in that such a huge amount, and huge fast activities are totally changed. When we can see the villages are converted to the urban places. So, like Hyderabad itself, if you take the Hyderabad, so before it was, when you see Municipal Corporation of Hyderabad, now if you see the Hyderabad, so it is totally converted to GHMC, Greater Hyderabad, Greater Municipal Corporation of Hyderabad. So the total area of the Hyderabad city, when you talk about it, has totally expanded in a outer ring roads. Okay, so this all expansion has been taken place due to this anthropogenic activities, so human activities. So this developmental activities, we call it as urbanization. That means urbanization is developing the entire city and converting the all the forest areas, all the what you say village area to the urban areas. So what is the link with this urbanization, and what is the link with the deforestation here? Now, what is deforestation? When we talk about the deforestation means it is linked directly with the urbanization. How it is linked with the urbanization? Because deforestation, when the deforestation is going on, what is happening really when the urbanization has to take place? The areas are to be totally vanished from such places, and to be removed from such places, and to be converted to the urbanization. So they are keep on cutting the trees, burning the areas, and trying to convert the entire area to the what you say urban areas, and changing the agricultural practices which have impacted the hydrologic process. Now, once the urbanization activity will take place, when the deforestation activity will take place, what will happen is the agricultural practices will be changed, so which will impact the hydrologic process. So, hydrologic process will be impacted with this changing agricultural practices. What will happen is wherever you see due to deforestation, the water will be affected. How the water will be affected due to deforestation? Wherever the deforestation activities are taking place, there the water runoff will be more. So water runoff will be more, so there is no time to whenever the rainfall occurs, the total water will be runoff, and there will be no seepage in the ground, so there will be problem with the groundwater as well as surface water too. So this is how it totally affects the land use, land cover of water resource when you talk about deforestation and urbanization. Nowadays, when you see in the major cities like A1 cities, wherever this activities are taking place, like Hyderabad, Bangalore, Calcutta, Delhi, such places there will be a water problem. So why the water problem is there? The water problem is there because the reason here is because of deforestation. So deforestation will that is the main factor for the soil erosion here. So what happens? First of all, the soil erosion will happen, and there will be problem for the water also. The top layer of the soil will be eroded, and there will be fertility activities also will be less in such areas. So the production of these crops also will be becoming less in such areas, which will be totally affected by this deforestation process. Okay, so deforestation process is like will affect the water as well as it will affect the production activities. So once the production activities are affected by the water, what happens is there will be lack of water, there will be lack of crops, and immediately the cost will be affected, and the normal people will be affected due to this deforestation process. So how it is linked? So if deforestation is there, if you want to go with the urbanization status, then what we have to directly go with the deforestation. So once the deforestation will occur, then automatically the water will be affected by these kind of activities. So deforestation, soil erosion, and there will be change in the agricultural practices, because agricultural practices will be changing depending on the water availability in such areas. So water availability in such areas, like if the water is less in such area, the activities will totally change, the agricultural practices will change, and depending on the water dependency, the crops will be grown, or either the single crop should be grown or the double crop should be grown, or there should be such a crop which will use very less water for the irrigation purpose. So this all practices will change due to this deforestation activities, due to the urbanization activities. So how this urbanization activities is directly linked with the water resource. Okay, so land use will change, land cover will change, activities will be changing, and directly it affects the agricultural practices, which impacts the hydrologic process. So hydrologic process, it impacts the water cycle too. Now, how it impacts the water cycle here? Water cycle is what? Water cycle is basically for the whatever water is evaporated from the surface water or the groundwater or from the soils or from the leaves of the plants. That water which is evaporated, that will go and form the clouds, and again it falls as a rainfall to the ground. It will form precipitation on the ground. So this process also, it will affect it wherever such areas when where the urbanization is totally developed, where the concrete structures has been taken place due to this urbanization process. So there the hydrological cycle will be affected. Okay, so hydrological process will be affected. There will be no evaporation, and the process will totally affected. There is no evaporation. The rainfall, there is no less rainfall. Due to less rainfall, the water table will go down, and there is no surface water, there is no groundwater. So entire this hydrological cycle, there will be a climate change in such area, and the heat of that area will be increased. So whenever this temperature will be increased, so how this urbanization is totally affected due to this. This is the main factor which affects the groundwater and surface water of this water resource. Okay. Now, when you talk about this land use, land cover in water resources, this is one land use, land cover in water resource. So this is what generally you can see here, like here the classifications are given. So when you classify this land use, land cover, so what will happen is you can just classify such areas like here. You can just classify here with different classifications. So either the classifications will be divided into land use, or it will be divided into land cover. So these two type of divisions will be taking place in such areas. So these classifications are done with the help of this software, and land use, land cover changes, it will be showing continuously. When you see year wise, from first 1 year, if you take this activities, if you take after 10 years activities, this will be keep on changing. Now, example of this land use and land cover in the water resource. When you talk about this is one example, it is given here. So in this example, if you see here, we have this area covered land use classification is there, dense forest, space forest, agriculture, fallow agriculture, plantation, build-up land, river perennial, seasonal scrub. So this all classification is given in the land classes. And what are the soil types? You can see here soil types. You have a loamy sand and the sandy clay, sandy loam, and this is classification only for the sand. And here we have the classification for the land use and land cover. So we have the classification like dense forest. So dense forest here, if you talk about 22% of the area is covered as a dense forest. When you see here dense forest, so here is the dense forest, that 22% of the area is covered with the dense forest here. Now it is totally captured by the forest land. And if you see here space land means the empty land, wherever the areas are not covered with any kind of construction work or not naturally covered, totally spare, totally waste for the any agriculture, waste for the construction and all. So 7% of the area is covered here due to this space land. Okay. Now built up land, if you see here built up land, so how much area is covered? 24. Like here, if you see built up land is covered with the 1%. So out of this entire map, if you see built up land is 1%, whereas forest is 22%. The 22% of the area, so highest percentage here still we are remaining with the forest, and the lowest percentage here if you see the built up land. So built up land is very less in this area. Most of the area is having the forest. That means here forest is present. That means the water quality and the groundwater and the surface water will be good for the such areas. So if built up land, if you say 22% and forest 1%, that means here the water problem is there. Like that, we can just do the analysis with the help of this land use and land cover and water resource. So here, dense forest and fallow land. If you see here, this is the dense forest. Now, if you talk about the agriculture, so 24 like more than forest we have agriculture here. So highest is the agriculture, which is having 24% area covered. So which one is the agriculture here? If you see the light green in this area, these are the areas where you can see the light green color. So this area is covered with 24%. So next is 22%, that is forest, and agriculture is 24%. That means in such areas we have more groundwater table is high and the water problem is not there. Surface water is present here, and lot of plantations are present. Even plantation, if you see, we have 11%. So greenery is more. If the greenery is more, that means the water quality is good. The water table is good. The water quantity is good here. So there is no problem with the water here in such areas, and the problem will be easily solved in such areas. So like that, we can just do the analysis with the help of this land use and land cover in the water resource. So land use and land cover is very helpful to tell you about the water resource presence, whether it is more or high or less or low based on the activities which are taking place. And if urbanization is more, so here you will be seeing that instead of 1%, there will be 20% of construction work. So built up land is more, then the water problem is definitely there. And what type of soil is present there will help us to tell us about the water quality quantity in the area. Suppose we have loamy soil, loamy sand, sandy clay, loam, silty loam. So this we have. If you see, the loamy soil will help us to just the water will be, it will hold the water. Whereas if loamy sand is there, it's wherever the sand will be there, it will be having capacity to absorb the water. So the water runoff won't be there. So if the soil is like clay soil, so we have 2% of silty clay, sandy clay, and 4% of silty loam. So this will not allow the water to seep into the ground. So there will be a problem with the water's what do you say, seeping problem, and the groundwater table will be low. So, but we can see here we have 34% of loamy soil and 23% of the loamy sandy soil, which will help the water to hold. So holding capacity is more here. So there will be no water problem in such areas. Like if you see here loam, you can see this red color is loam soil, and a loamy sand is, you can see this all green color is a loamy sand, and sandy loam here we have 32% again. So all the yellow color where you can see the sandy loam, that means it has a holding capacity. So whenever the waterfall will be there, it will be absorbed under the ground. So wherever you find this clayey soil, it is not having the capacity to hold the water. So water flow will be more. So that's the reason, because of this type of the sand, this type of the soil, that's the reason you can see here the forest area is more, because of the groundwater presence is more, and the water cycle here it is the regulation of the water cycle is good. So hydrological cycle will be working properly here. The evaporation process is there, and the rainfall occurs here in a very frequent manner. So there is no water shortage problem. There is no water problem here. So that's why it will be helpful in the. We can easily just analyze that here this area is totally free from this lack of water. So here the water problem is not at all there, and because the forest is there, it has a holding capacity. There is no soil erosion too. If the forest is present, so soil erosion won't be there. Okay, soil erosion won't occur. So if the forest is present, soil erosion will not occur. So that's the reason we can just see the map of land use and land cover, and we can analyze about the water resource present in such areas. Okay. Now next, land use and land cover play a crucial role in the management and conservation of water resource. So it will help us to in the conservation and the management of the water resource. So an overview of LULC, like conservation and management is wherever the water resource we can find based on the land use land cover. Wherever you see the water resource is less, the forest is less, and the built up land is more, and the type of the soil is like a clay soil or a silty clay soil, which will not hold the water there. So that areas will be easily we can just go with the watershed management issues, and we can just plan for the conservation of the water in such areas. So how the LULC affects the water resource and its implications. So land use and land cover, like land use refers to the way land is utilized by the humans. So it refers to the way how the land is utilized by the humans. So how we can utilize the land by the humans. For example, it includes the agriculture, urban development, forestry, grazing, and recreation. So, land use is utilization, as I said in the previous slides, also utilization of the land. So, how the land is utilized by the anthropogenic activities. So, anthropogenic activities by the human activities, how the land is utilized. So, when you talk about utilization, agriculture, urban development, forest, grazing, and recreation are the different examples of this. Land use and land cover. So agriculture means if you talk about agriculture, so the area which is utilized by the agriculture will be utilized by the humans. It comes under agriculture. Urban development is like developmental activities where it takes place in like as urbanization I told you, and forestry, grazing activities, and recreation will be uh, comes under the land use. Land cover, when you talk about land cover, describes the physical material at the surface of the earth, includes vegetation, water bodies, bare soil, and man-made structures. So land cover is which is naturally covered by the soils, which is naturally covered by the water body, and which is naturally covered by the mountains, rivers, vegetation, forests. This all comes under this uh, land cover. Okay, so here if you see land and water, if you see here, so this areas, this yellow color is the land and the water is blue color. Now here also if you see there is a yellow color and water is more. So in this area if you see, this is the same area of different season, we can say, of different season. Okay, same area of different season. How we can say this is the same area of different season? Same type of you can see the water body, same type of water body you can see here, right? Same type of water body you can see here. Okay, but why different season means in some season, like in the dry season, in the summer season, the here the small water resources will be totally evaporated and totally dried up based on the heat present in such area. Later in the rainy season, if you see this area, it will be totally covered with the water. So it's by the satellite picture you can see the area is totally covered with the water, or else through this in mapping, but land use land cover mapping also if you do, you will get to know about this area is covered with the water body or it is covered with the free with the water. Like that we can just assume and do the analysis part with the help of this land use and land cover in water resource. So it's a very helpful in a water resource, not only in water resource, in most of the applications like forestry applications or floods, droughts, that all applications it is very much helpful. Basically, water resource will be easily identified with the help of this land use and land cover water resource. Okay. Now, impacts of land use and land cover on water resource. So, what are the different impacts we'll get to know on the water resource? What are the different impacts here? So now if you talk about the impacts, water quality. When you talk about the water quality, so what happens when the land use and land cover impacts on the water quality? So when you go with the agriculture, use of fertilizers and pesticides can lead to nutrient runoff and causing the water pollution and eutrophication in the water bodies. So when you use the fertilizers, when you use the pesticides, and if you use the soil and nutrient in the fields, what will happen due to runoff? It will go to the main water bodies and it will cause the eutrophication. What is eutrophication? Eutrophication based on the nutrients present in the water. It will generate. It will lot of plants will grow on the surface of the water, and then the eutrophication will take place on the surface of the water body. Now, urban development, what is urban development? So, increased impervious services like roads, buildings will be having this problem. So, like reduce the infiltration. So, as I said in the previous slides, also it will reduce the infiltration because as the developmental activities are taking, as the urban areas are developing, as the urban areas are keep on increasing. So, in that case, what happens? This infiltration activities will be very low. There will be a soil erosion everywhere. The water holding capacity that areas will be lost because the entire area, the entire land is converted to the concrete now. So once the area is converted to the concrete, what happens? The water flow, the water runoff is more. So once the water runoff is more, what happens? Once the water runoff is more, there is low infiltration. So once the low infiltration is there, the groundwater will be reduced. So water quality will be less problematic because of this nutrient runoff. So all the fertilizer water, all the pesticides water will go into the main water resource. Second thing, what we can see is urban development. Due to urban developments, the infiltration will be less, and it leads to the contamination pollutants like oil, heavy metals, and chemicals. So wherever the developmental activities will take place, wherever the urban areas are more, so in that urban areas, what happens? The heavy metals and the chemicals, what we throw on the ground and we throw on the water, that will be totally affected. It will go to the main water source, and that water source, and even it goes to the groundwater, it mixes with the groundwater, and we have a problem with the water quality. So nowadays in this urbanization process, nowadays in these areas, wherever these activities are going on, that areas are totally affected with this urban water quality problem. So there is a lot of problem with the water quality, lot of filtration is required to just make the water pure, and to drink a one glass of water we have to go with a lot of processing of the water. So this is the problem we are facing due to this impacts of land use, land cover on the water resource. So next is forestry. So logging and deforestation can increase the sedimentation in rivers and streams, affecting the water quality and aquatic habitats. So logging and deforestation can increase the sedimentation. So in this, we have this problem of water logging here. Like deforestation can increase the sedimentation in the rivers and streams. So how it happens is like when the water erosion will take place, then this water is eroded and it goes to the streams and rivers. So a lot of problem happens due to the deforestation, because deforestation will lead to soil erosion. Okay? So due to soil erosion, lot of sedimentation, lot of topsoil will be flow, runoff will be there, and it will flow away along with the water, and it goes and settles into the streams and what is the mainstreams in the water resource, which will be major problem for sedimentation. So sedimentation will be increasing. As the sedimentation will increase in the water resource, what will happen is the capacity of reservoir will be decreasing, because the lower level of the sediment, lower level surface of the water body is totally filled with the sediments. Now slowly the water holding capacity of the river, the water holding capacity of a reservoir will be decreased. So lot of chances of flooding occurs whenever the rainfall occurs. The capacity of the river, the capacity of the reservoir get decreased, and the chances of flooding occurs again. So due to the flooding, what happens? The waterlogging problem happens again. So this is the water quality problem here. Now water quantity, when you talk about the water quantity. So water quantity is like agriculture, urban areas, deforestation will be affected here again. So now if you talk about the agriculture, irrigation demands can deplete the groundwater, surface water supplies. So agriculture, wherever you use the agriculture will take most of the water, 70% of the water that it is used by the agriculture. So wherever increasing of irrigation demands will be more, and which will deplete the groundwater and the surface water supplies. So if more agriculture is there and there is less rain for irrigation purpose, for irrigation, if the demand is more, then that areas will be affected with this agriculture. Now, urban areas. What are urban areas? High water consumptions and reduce infiltration. High water consumptions and reduce infiltration will infiltration can lower the groundwater recharge rates. So as the consumption is more in the urban areas, the infiltration is low, and the groundwater will be lower and the recharge rates will be less. Okay, so deforestation also it reduces the evapotranspiration and can lead to the changes in the local regional hydrology, including the reduced water availability. Now, flooding and erosion. So, how flooding and erosion is directly impacted here? Urbanization is the main cause everywhere you can see. So, how the flooding occurs due to urbanization? Increased runoff due to impervious surfaces can lead to higher peaks flows and more frequent flooding will occur because runoff is more. So runoff is more. There is no land where there is no soil in the urban areas where the water can hold and the water can be seeped inside the ground. There is no impervious layer. There is no infiltration there. Because of that only, what happens? The total entire water, whenever the rainfall occurs, it is flooded. It flows. The runoff occurs and it is totally drained and reaches into the urban areas where the water flooding will occur. Now, if you see the deforestation and agriculture can lead to the increased soil erosion. So here also, if you see the cause here is deforestation and agriculture for the erosion and the flooding. It can lead to the soil erosion. Why? Because wherever the flooding occurs, when the deforestation occurs, soil erosion will occur, and from the higher level to the lower lying areas will be covered with the water body. It will be covered with the water flow and contributing the sedimentation in the water bodies and reduced water holding capacity of the land. Now, aquatic ecosystems. So, what is aquatic ecosystems? So changes in land cover can affect the habitat availability. Changes in land cover can affect the habitat availability and quality of the aquatic species. So land use, land cover changes will affect the habitat of the aquatic ecosystem because all the this let us say the fertilizers, the whatever manures we are using in the feed. So that is totally flowed and it is going to the water body, which will affect the habitat and availability of the uh, ecosystem will be changed. So quality of the species will change and it will affect the aquatic species, particularly sensitive and crucial for maintaining the ecosystem health. Due to the land use, land cover changes, lot of materials which are dumped in the water body, lot of pesticides which are dumped in the water body, and all the materials which are waste of the construction that all are dumped in the water body, which are affecting nowadays for the aquatic ecosystem, and totally the habitat of this species are going to be changed and they are affecting, and quality of the species are also affecting here. The quality of the species we are not getting, the quality is decreasing here due to this heavy metals which are present in the water body here. So it compromises with the health of the aquatic species and it reduces the health of the ecosystem. Now, LLC mapping and monitoring. So mapping and monitoring, when we talk about, so remote sensing use of satellite imageries, aerial photographs to monitor changes in the land use and land cover over time. So remote sensing will help us, as we have studied in the previous lectures about the in the first module and the second module about the remote sensing. So remote sensing will provide you the data for this land use and land cover preparation, and it will tell you about the monitor changes in the land use land cover over the time. And GIS will gives the tools to analyze the spatial data and assess the impacts of on water resource. And field surveys and ground truthing will collecting on the sites and data validate remote sensing and GIS analysis. So this land use and land cover mapping and monitoring is possible with the help of this remote sensing, with the help of the GIS, with the help of the field service. So remote sensing is the way, it's a source from where we find the data and we just try to map these areas after flood, before flood, and before rainfall, after rainfall. It will give us the spatio-temporal information about this such areas, and we can just easily map these areas with the help of this land use and land cover remote sensing. Now, GIS is the tool. It will give us the tool once the data is prepared. So it will give us the tool to analyze the spatial data and assess the impacts on the water resources. Now, field service, ground truthing and collecting on site data, validate remote sensing and GIS analysis will be possible. Now, management and conservation strategies. Now, sustainable land use planning, if you see, so how do we manage and conserve this strategy? Sustainable land use planning. So implementing zoning regulations to control the urban sprawl. So what is urban sprawl? Urban sprawl is about the urbanization here. So once the urbanization is taking place, it will help us to manage then conservation strategies should be maintained and sustainable land use planning should be done, which will control the urban sprawl, encouraging the agricultural practices that minimize the water consumption and the pollution. And conservation practices, when you see, so like riparian buffer zones to filter runoff and protect water bodies, reforestation and forestation to enhance the water infiltration and reduce the erosion. Now, integrated water resource management, coordinating the management of land, water, and related resources to optimize the economic, social welfare without compromising the sustainability, and related resources optimize the sustainability. It will help us to coordinate the management of the land, water, and related resources and optimize the economic, social welfare without compromising the sustainability. Restoration projects, restoring the wetlands and the riparian zones to improve the water quality and provide the natural flood controls. Now, case study. When you talk about case study, when you have a problem of this land use and land cover water resources, how to solve this case study. So there is an example here. So the example here is the we can say is Chickasaw Bay watershed. What is the problem here? The problem here is faced significant water quality issues due to nutrient and sediment pollution from agriculture and urban development and deforestation. So this area is totally facing the problem with the sedimentation, pollution, facing the problem with the agriculture, urban development, and deforestation. So first of all, if you want to solve this issue, so what is the approach here? So first approach, what you have to see here is use of remote sensing and GIS to monitor. So first thing you have to use the remote sensing and GIS, which will monitor the land use changes here, implementation of the best management practices in the agriculture, such as cover cropping and nutrient management plans. So it will help us to use this remote sensing and GIS will help us to just monitor the land use changes through implementation of the best management practices in agriculture, such as land cover, cropping, and the nutrient management plans. Now, outcome is to improve quality and the enhanced habitat of the aquatic life. So this was the outcome of this problem. Now conclusion, if you see, conclusion is understanding the interplay between land use and land cover and water resource is a critical for effective management and conservation. So understanding the land use land cover interplay, or how the land use land cover is used here, how the resources are used here and managed in an effective manner, and conservation is done here. So that will be understanding. So by leveraging the technologies like remote sensing and GIS and adopting the suitable or sustainable practices here, that is a conclusion here, and we can mitigate the impacts and ensure the long-term health availability of the water resources. Here we can just mitigate the impacts and negative impacts of the long-term health and the availability of the water resources. So this was about the land use and land cover in water resource. The land use land cover is very much useful and it impacts the entire water resource due to this management practices, due to these activities, construction activities, and these impacts will be implemented in such areas wherever the construction activities are more. So mainly the problem here for the water resources urbanization, which is linked with the deforestation, which is linked with the water quality problem, which is linked with the water quantity problem. So this all will be linked with this land use and land cover in the water resource. Now these are few references which you can just go through to find out the more content about this land use and land cover of water resource. So M.N.G. Reddy book, Remote Sensing in BS publication by New Delhi, you can just go through. These are the few links we can just go through to find out the more content about this topic. So that's all for today. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.